Okay, so I'll try to be as succinct as possible. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'll spend the next 15 minutes explaining the Fungible Non-Fungible Pavilion, which hopefully a lot of you, if not all of you, have seen already out in front of the Museum of Estonian Architecture. It's going to be there for the next 2 years, so you do have the time to go and spend and visit it as you wish, whether it's night or day. So I'll try and explain most of the ideas behind the project. There's a lot of terms that maybe come up that you might not be familiar with, but I'll try my best to either glaze over them for ones that maybe aren't so important, and for ones that are, I'll define them as best I can. Though I do want to state that the project is a first of its kind, so it's incredibly important to realize that it potentially might be a little bit fuzzy at times for you and for me, because there are no architectural precedents. It's never been done before, so we're working off of ground zero basically here. So please bear with me. So I think the first thing to start with is, what is an NFT? So an NFT is a term that I'll use throughout, but it essentially means a non-fungible token. And what that means is that it's a record or a store on the blockchain that relates directly to either a digital or a physical asset. So in our case, it's both digital and physical. So the question is, okay, why is this important for architecture? It's important because traditionally architecture is a top-down process, which means that private investments and key stakeholders essentially pull the strings. For an architect, it's kind of frustrating. You try to impose your ideas, your visions, and often they're swatted because of budget concerns or just far too much experimentation. And from an architect's point of view, there's this notion of the master builder or the napkin sketch, this idea that architects transfer this immense talent and genius from their head to their hand and scribble a piece of ink on a piece of paper that maybe they've found wherever, and they utilize that to pass off to students or pass off to other architects in their office and dictate how the building should be formed. So this is a very typical top-down approach, meaning that this image you see here is the sketch from Frank Gehry on a napkin, I think from a hotel, obviously, for the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. But it's essentially just a scribble, and it's a way for him to communicate to his office, but also to try and impose his ideas, which I think is very antiquated. And I would argue that architecture can be far more inclusive, far more collaborative, and architects shouldn't have this top-down approach to try to push their ideologies or thinking onto the community. And instead, the community can have the opportunity to have the agency, essentially, to design and communicate what they want within their city. And that's exactly what we try to achieve through the TAB 2022 Pavilion. So try to go from a top-down solution to a bottom-up approach, which allows the community to design the pavilion, to fund it, and to dictate the size, the geometry, the form, literally the color, potentially even the types of materials could be pushed as well. But I guess the question is, if architecture can be more inclusive and more collaborative, how do we do that? So our knowledge specifically is in new technologies. So we're architects as a team, we're architects, but we also are software engineers, and we're XR prototypers and AI engineers as well. So there's a lot of kind of knowledge behind the scenes that we're trying to find ways in which we can gamify the architectural process and allow people to essentially become architects. So whether you're trained as an architect or you don't have any kind of creative, or you feel that you don't have any creative bone in your body, the idea for us would always be to give you that platform to enable you to do that. So we directly thought, okay, how can we do that? We need some sort of platform that allows us to design. It needs to be fun. It needs to be relatively easy to get around. It needs to be accessible to all. And we need a way to verify that you designed a piece, you spent this amount of material, you painted it this color, and so on, and then a way to store that information. So we utilize NFTs. Let's see. Oh. Hopefully this one plays. I'll go back one more. Yeah, so like I said, we had to try and make it quite fun, quite exciting, and relatively simple. So we built this web application. There you have a maximum amount of material to utilize. You have a maximum amount of colors and forms in which you can design from. But you work independently. You have this option to design as much as you want until you're happy. You go through the process, you paint it, you determine what the shape is, the form, and then once you mint, it goes to the blockchain where we can then see the outcomes that you designed. So very simple process. I'll try to distill it into these 4 categories. You would sync your wallet. So people that aren't familiar with cryptocurrencies, there's a term called a wallet that's essentially your identity on the chain. You would design, you would color it, paint it, and then mint your design. And once you hit the mint, you're greeted with transactions and so on. And then your information, your design is passed on to us, essentially. So this is the platform that we built. That's me connecting my wallet. This is me starting to design with just some very simple, like Minecraft-esque blocks. I'm then utilizing some of the chamfered pieces that we allowed within the platform as well. And then I get the option to start painting and start playing around, testing. This is done super quick, of course, so you can be as fast as you like or take as much time as you'd like. And at the end of the process, you go through the transaction, and then it essentially ends up on the blockchain. So hopefully it's not too confusing, but what we get at the end is an array of all of these designs, and each design comes with a key set of attributes. So I'm not sure if anyone designed one here, but maybe you can see it. But there are 78 unique designs thus far, but the platform is still open, so we are still accepting further growth of the pavilion. So each NFT, once it's minted, it looks something like this. So this is a 3D model, and alongside it, there's key attributes. So very simple things that you need as an architect. You need to know how much material there is. You need to know the types of material. Is it wood? Is it got a 45-degree cut? Does it have a rounded piece? Very simple, but information that's key for the construction. And then lastly, probably the most important thing for us was to make sure that every single person that designed, or every single wallet that was designing, was credited. So each person is there added in the metadata. Some people allowed themselves to stay anonymous. Some are more open and allow themselves to be public. But one of the interesting things, because it's done through this system, the design are all owned by the people that essentially paid for them. So they pay for the design, they own it, and then they can sell it and make further royalties as well, because they are the architects essentially of those pieces. And we've already had a few people trying to sell their designs online, which is quite fun, because someone has theirs listed for 25,000 pesos, which is the equivalent of 40,000 euros. I don't know if they're going to get it to sell, but it's the thing that's important is the fact that they can. Like, they have that option to then, they own it, they can then sell it, which is really, really exciting, because it changes the landscape of what people own within their architecture and their level of contribution towards it. So in the middle of July, we had to pause, because at some point you do need to have a design to produce, and we need to draw up things like construction documentation and things like this. So then these are the 78 pieces that currently make up the pavilion as it stands today. And if you've got a keen eye, you'll see that on the left and on the right, it's actually the first piece that I showed you as an NFT built in real life. Funnily enough, it's the first piece we built. It was the first piece that was minted, but it was very coincidental, but exciting to see now after it's all done. So each piece was designed individually, built individually, and then once they were ready to paint, we had a lot of helping hands, and we're really grateful for all the students and people that came to volunteer and give us a hand sanding and painting, which is happening on the right-hand side. And then before going to site, just logistically, we can't take 7 to 8 pieces individually and just kind of try to put them together like one massive jigsaw or puzzle. So instead, we started to aggregate them together into smaller groups that were liftable by 2 people. Try to make it as simple as possible, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, sometimes you look a little bit disheartened, unsure as to where the next piece will go. But thankfully, thankfully, we made it in the end. But like I said, it was this massive puzzle. So at times we were just kind of scratching our heads, like, how do we get that up there? Which direction is it supposed to be? Which is obviously it's a fun challenge, but I guess sometimes it could be a frustrating one. I guess traditional architectural drawings weren't incredibly helpful for us, so we worked primarily in 3D during the construction process as well. And lastly, I can actually show you guys the pavilion. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is what it looks like on site today. I'm not sure if it's this sunny, but it's pretty great. And this is us during the photo shoot, climbing around like a bunch of kids, I guess. And I think it was replicated on the opening night when, to our kind of excitement, I guess, to see hundreds of these kids like running around, playing on it, and just kind of like having the time of their lives. There's a lot of parents that were very trustful though of their kids that were up quite high, so maybe be more careful with the kids. So yeah, here's the elevation. One thing to note, if you go to visit it and you go up close, there's these small white circles. And if you go with your phone and actually tap it to the circle, then it will take you directly to the individual piece. So each object, each piece that was designed and minted by unique users is then tracked and tagged so that if they come or you come and you want to see, okay, where does this come from? What does this piece look like in isolation? You scan it. You can even go and purchase it if you would like. So if anyone has a spare 40,000 euros lying around, feel free to go and pick up that piece. Yeah, and this is us as we are. And just one kind of final remark. The design is still, or the platform is still open, it's still flexible. So we have this ambition, and the Biennale also has the ambition that the pavilion can grow as the Biennale continues. So feel free to go to tab.iheartblob.com, go through the process. If anyone's really interested in minting and isn't sure how to go about it, feel free to come and grab me, and I can even give you some advice as to how to go through it. So yeah, hopefully, yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Really exciting stuff. Thank you, Shaun. And please don't leave the stage.
Okay.
If you could just stay, because we're going to have a moderated discussion in a minute. But before we do that, I would like to ask to the stage Andres Kangur. Andres Kangur is Thermory's marketing director. And Thermory has been the supporter of TAB for a number of years by now. You manufacture wood products, chemically free, with a pretty exciting process that I expect you will tell us about a little bit in a minute. And Andres himself has worked for 20 plus years outside Estonia in different large companies in different sectors, from food industry to automotive. And the last 3 years leading the Thermory brand and marketing. So Andres, if you could quickly reflect and tell us about Thermory, and then, yeah, we'll discuss.
Yes, hello. Thanks for the invitation to talk to you and to be part of TAB. Actually, Ivan, you asked me to tell what was our experience in this kind of a creative project. And to tell it simply, it's it is a little art project for us, and it is always exciting to be part of that. So 3 years ago at TAB, we supported a team called Steampunk, and maybe some of you were around and saw the fantastic exhibition outside the Architectural Museum. And this team used mixed reality or virtual reality technology. This time then iheartblob used cryptocurrency or blockchain technology. So in our view, these teams are actually pushing the boundaries of what's possible and having a kind of a future forward looking challenge on the architecture industry, on construction industry, and this is really the reason why Thermory wants to support TAB in general and actually these installation competitions, because for us it's exciting. It gets us a little bit outside of our normal comfort zone and the business that we do on a daily basis, and actually for our team to get engaged in these types of discussions and provide products like we did in this case to a team that wants to construct something fantastic, something new, something groundbreaking. It's also exciting for people in R&D, in production, to actually get engaged. But let me just give you a brief overview of what we do before we start a discussion. So the typical facility at Thermory looks something like that. So it's a big industry. We're 850 people, 11 factories across the region here in Finland, Estonia, Latvia, but we are selling across the world and working a lot on different types of projects with architects, with designers, with property developers. But thermal modification actually happens at mass scale and in these kind of a big industrial ovens. So you can imagine this works like cooking or baking bread. So a couple of truckloads of wood is put into this oven, and 48 hours later it comes out as modified wood, which we then use different treatment processes to give it the final look, the final profile that will be used in buildings design. The benefits of thermal modification, just quickly, are that it actually changes the fiber of the wood without using any chemicals. So it's a chemical-free, sustainable technology developed about 20 years ago, and we have been the company that has invested in it a lot and now become the leading producer using that technology. And actually it helps wood to stay more durable and more dimensionally stable. So, which are the key challenges when constructing with wood or out of wood. So this is the kind of products we make. So we make applications for exterior and interior design, but the main product categories are decking, cladding, interior design and sauna, actually. So living in the north, we know a few things about sauna, and we are actually the biggest seller of materials both here domestically in Estonia, but also in Finland, which is the largest market for sauna products. And let me just give you a few examples of applications that we do. So here is just a range of treatments that then thermally modified wood is going through. And we ourselves are very passionate about wood, so we know a lot about it. And we invite architects to use wood creatively and be brave at experimenting it, because we believe bringing more wood to the environment we live in is actually beneficial. So it's bringing nature back to the urban, often or sometimes cold environment. So just some references and to give you impression of what can be done. So feel free to visit our website. There is much more on it. So here are some applications that you can actually use in exterior, creative mix of wood types, of lengths, of treatments. We worked with some famous architects like Snohetta Bureau in Norway on this energy positive building they built where wood is used throughout the facade. And then, on the other hand, some really small, cozy, let's say, retreats that use wood and are built within the woods. There is countries where wood is not grown, like the Netherlands. They use a lot of it, and actually, it's one way to bring nature back to their realm. Interior design. So this example is a Japanese shushugiban style that uses a pattern of burnt wood or charred wood, which is actually not burnt, but it's thermotreated, embossed, so kind of imprinted and painted, so you don't get your hands dirty when touching this wall. And generally, we've been happy to collaborate with architects. We work closely with Estonian Academy of Arts, supporting students and their educational programs, bringing in product designers and architects into our life, and using some external thinking to shape our product portfolio going forward. And I know with Ivan we talked about kind of the outlook of architecture, and that was the question posed to me. And maybe here are some points that we might discuss. But I think sustainability needs to be as part of businesses going forward. It needs to be at the core, and also the principles of circularity. I think this conference is the testament of that actually we need to start thinking from the design, from the very beginning. Supply chain, we as a producer understand need to change and evolve to reduce the footprint, and we're doing quite a lot of work in that field. And I think one topic is modularity and customization, which actually would help reduce the costs of production in the future. So that's also a challenge we're working with. So how to be faster, how to build faster, how to create more in the factory before it goes out to the construction site, and how to, for example, use modularity in exterior design with wood. But just to leave on a last slide, so this is our mission, the way we feel about it, so to leave a lasting impact on the society, on the buildings around us, and that's actually a very motivating purpose for us as a team, and has been successful in driving, I think, our success in 25 years now. So thanks. This is all for introduction now, and we can go into the discussion.
Thank you, Andres. All right. How should we do this?
Set anywhere specific?
Say what?
Do you want us to set anywhere specific? No?
No.
It's all good?
I mean, chill. Yeah, we have plenty of space, thankfully, for this discussion. Not like some discussions yesterday, where we had to cram people together. But anyway, and again, this is a discussion, so it's open to the public. And maybe I'll start with a question or two, and then you guys kind of join in, right? So first of all, what I wanted to ask, maybe, and that's one of the points that came up was, well, you commented already on the experience of working, or why you guys work or support the design and construction of the installation program within TAB. But Shaun, what about you? What has been the experience of working with Thermory? How much, for example, wood as a material informed your design? How much support did you get or need? Or what's the working relationship has been?
I think the working relationship has been pretty great. It's been a pretty smooth process as well. We proposed that we wanted to essentially have these glue laminated pieces of timber that were, I think, 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters. It's not your typical profile at all. We found that out very, very dramatically, I think, when we started to build it, that not many craftspeople had the tools to actually cut it properly, which was something that, because we're not joiners or carpenters ourselves, we didn't really expect. But I think as soon as we proposed it, Thermory were like, yeah, let's do it, which was fantastic. You know, I think having someone that is so motivated to work together to do it and make something happen was fantastic for us. It's something that I don't think we could have got elsewhere in a very efficient manner. So it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, just to add to that, so it was a creative process. Our head of development, I think, spent 2 weeks just chasing the people around the factory to make sure that they deliver onto what the guys wanted, because typically we do more thinner pieces of which then the material is cut. But here we needed to take material from one factory to another, to glue it together, and then to cut it in the machines that are designed to cut at scale different pieces. So we had to improvise, but that was fun. So despite it was in the middle of July and people wanted to be on vacation, a lot of phone calls and emails back and forth, and we delivered you the product. So that's very good, and we are excited just for the experience and to see what is possible to make out of wood.
I think the carry-away from the answer to this question is, if you haven't participated in TAB's installation competition yet, do it, because you won't have better partners than this. I mean, seriously. But okay, any questions from the audience already? Hands? No hands? Oh, one hand. Great. It only took one question from me to get the public going. Great.
Thank you for that, and congratulations to you both. It's really fun and very exciting to see the pavilion. I'm a fan, and also that it will continue to grow and evolve. But my question, I think, to both of you in terms of the fungibleness and non-fungibleness of it, and also being that it's made of wood, I wondered about the final end of life of the installation or of the material. What happens at the very, very end? Does this decompose? How does it work? And what does that mean for the blockchain?
I would hope it doesn't decompose. That would be the goal. I think we have a plan for a second life after the first 2 years. But I think one potential of just the design process is that it can be. It's a potential. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but it is a potential that it can be reconfigured. So essentially, the design documentation is online. So we could work together again and produce it in another city in a different configuration using the same parts.
Actually, can I, Shaun, just clarify one thing which relates to the question?
Mm-hmm.
Do I understand correctly that the pieces are designed by individuals, but then they are put together by you still?
So there's kind of a two-step process. We're using a set of algorithms to kind of optimize and arrange the objects, essentially. And then there is final tweaks just to confirm structural stability, like constructability. And
why I'm asking is because it could be reconfigured in a different
place, exactly,
in a different shape. Okay.
Yeah. Which is exciting because it means that the actual design pieces they're immutable, so we can't change them. We can't redesign the parts that already exist, but we could redesign the way in which they go together. So, like I said at the beginning, that we kind of made these groups in order to bring them on site just for logistics. We could do that again, but with a different algorithm or with a different set of rules, saying that we need it to be completely open or we need it to be really tight and tall, or we can set these principles to then change the way that it works and the way that it's produced. And maybe just one other little note on that. One thing that was super exciting for us is we didn't know the outcome at all until people started designing. So if people decided what we love is 2.1 meter lengths of timber, then it would be a completely different structure. Instead, lots of people wanted to design really fiddly, intricate little pieces made of things that were really difficult to cut and put together. So they loved that, which I don't know if we did, but that was their love. So they got what they kind of designed, and that's how the structure comes together.
I can add to that we have already agreed that after 2 years, so before the next pavilion is built for the following Biennale, this installation is going to move to another location in the city, to Ülemiste city, which is close to the airport, so a business district. And Ülemiste is also a partner of TAB. Mm-hmm. So we've agreed that it's going to move there into a future park. So where will it go from there? So I don't know. Maybe if it's so successful, then you'll auction it.
in real space and time. But actually, I wanted to maybe ask about this wood. I think wood is used the way it is used in architecture, partially for the reason that it can be reconfigured. Mm-hmm. And not just in case of this particular installation, but in case of just larger wooden structures. Essentially, wood is just a very versatile material. Do you see that as being something that is used, let's say the potential of wood to be reconfigured, used more in architecture and in the projects that you, for example, do? Or what do you think? Like, can you comment on this quickly?
Well, we do mainly wood which is designed to be durable, and therefore exactly. I think, well, will it be reconfigured in our lifetime or kind of, close to what we see? Hopefully it's going to stay there for quite a while and be part of that design. I think when you think of wood in broader terms, then, for example, cross-laminated timber technology allows houses to be built more modularly. So actually you can deconstruct the full design in some projects. And that's, I think, a very fantastic idea. So if we don't like what we have or it's in the wrong place, then it can be changed. Because with concrete, there's lots of concrete there for a long time in the ground.
It's just an important aspect because since we're talking about edible and let's say the how do you call it? The circularity of resources, then obviously, well, before it was like, okay, you construct a building with wood, then the only thing you can do is burn it for electricity, for example, or for heat. But now we're arriving at a completely new age, let's say, where we can't allow ourselves to do that anymore. So yeah, no, it's pretty exciting stuff, actually. But it also brings to the, okay, more questions from the audience. Before I ask questions, I'll ask you guys for questions. Oh, yes, there we go. So, yeah, there is a microphone coming. Sophia, just a sec.
Participation is at the basis of your design process. It's the starting point. How are people that joined you accredited or familiarize themselves with authorship? Or are we discussing a process where authorship is non-relevant and the collective project is really what satisfies taking part and being part of?
I think from our perspective, we want to change the narrative around authorship. So I think people that work in architectural offices usually don't get correct or appropriate accreditation. I think people don't usually get the option to design what exists in their city, or at least they don't get the option to have much of a say. There obviously is these kind of community forums that happen, but they're not as effective. So I would argue that what we're trying to do is provide authorship to the people that design and participate. But one of the nice things about blockchain is if you don't want to take that credit for yourself, like you could have an anonymous account or something hidden to protect your identity. I don't know, maybe you're a famous celebrity that wants to contribute but doesn't want to cause a stir. You have that option. So it's important for us to enable people to have that creativity. I think that's really important for us.
Collective authorship would be, a new form of participation enabled by new technologies.
Yeah, so I guess it comes together as collective authorship for the entire pavilion and the collection as a whole. But each piece will have individual authorship as well. So it means that they can either take that credit or not, and they could also take the credit of being part of the collective whole. Something that was important for us was this idea of collective intelligence. So focusing on collective intelligence rather than this top-down approach that one architect is going to determine what the people get, which I think there's a lot to build on it. Like I would say this is like case study 1 or case study 0 even. And there's a lot of potential for architecture further down the line to change the way that we design cities and the way we interact with people that are actually going to use them. Because a lot of the time stakeholders aren't, like they might not even be in the country and they don't know what's happening in Tallinn or other cities.
Can I build on that question?
Yeah.
I just wanted to build on that as well. So from our perspective, it would be exciting to see if or how this community design actually impacts the buildings around us, because we've obviously are a wood company and we believe in the values and properties of that. So if the choice was given to the public and to the community, would we see more natural materials, circular resources, sustainable companies getting, a tailwind to their ideas, to their products, to their business. So that would be interesting to give more, right, actually, to the community to have a say.
Yeah, for sure. From my side, I think that's where it gets really, really exciting, because if we're currently looking at the scale of a pavilion, it's not going to have the same impact as like a 10-story housing block, and there's also more questions to ask when you get to that scale. So how do I want to live? Do I want to have access to green space? Do I want to have access to balconies? What types of balconies do I want? There's all these like questionings that happen, the types of material as well. And giving the people that option, I think, will change the values in which architects currently think people want to live. And then instead we'll get returns of what people actually want, hopefully. Anyway, I would say.
This is really exciting because, like, for example, as far as I understand, people produce and mint and own the design, but not the actual part, right? In your case, and I was just thinking, okay, let's confuse that for a second and think that I own the part. So fast forward 15 years, what happens if somebody sells a beam?
Yeah.
Let's say, like a load-bearing beam just got sold, and so what are you going to do? Like, so I think this installation raises a number of pretty exciting questions, not only about authorship, but also ownership of both of the design and the artifact in the end. So if I don't want my piece to be exhibited anymore, what happens to the whole thing? So it's pretty exciting test ground.
Yeah, I think for us that's the big question in any of these blockchain technology questions, I guess, right now, is how do we determine authorship and ownership across both physical and digital paradigms or spaces? And it changes, like we were saying, if it goes to larger scale, if I maybe own the house or I own the apartment, how does that change when I want to sell it? Do I sell it on the blockchain? Does it change the way that others around me want to interact with me because it's a collective ownership? We own the housing together. Do they get a say, perhaps? Is there a collective of disagreement or agreement whether someone new can come in or not? So there's like so many questions of, like, I guess, voting rights and giving people that permission.
Well, it's also probably about like hardware and software in architecture, right? So if we think about, like, let's say Tesla, right? Tesla is essentially a piece of, I don't know, metal, but it behaves in completely different ways depending on the software that you use. So it's the same artifact, but it not really the same artifact. I mean, the battery is different, the motors are different sometimes. But if we bring that to architecture, this kind of software versus hardware question, what do you guys think? Like, what are the pieces that kind of have to be there? What can we change? Where are the limits of that? How does let's say the fungible, non-fungible, did you play with those ideas?
Yeah, like I think going forward, when we were just speaking about CLT, like, I think if you think of it, these modular components are like replaceable materials. That would be the fungibility of it, rather than something that's immutable that can never be changed digitally. But I guess that would come into the question as to what kind of control the people have within their spaces and their cities that they exist. I could imagine, though, that you could design processes that allow for complete flexibility. So we've seen this in like early 1900s, where we're designing modular or expandable spaces that open up or close, whatever. But maybe through this process, you could exchange parts. You know, you want to have a 2-bedroom, you can add another piece. You want to make your open plan living room closed, and it's a kind of a nice nook now. You can add another piece or remove it, and I think that's part of the discussion, right? It changes the way that we design together and changes the ownership and authorship of where we live and how we live, which I think is exciting.
Yeah, I would add 2 perspectives to that. So one is about customer centricity. So actually the client being in charge of the design, what they want. And I'm here thinking vis-a-vis the industry who produces it. Because often many things are produced by the industry by thinking, well, this is what we can make. But is that what the customer wants to have? So if we redesign the process backwards, that actually factories will be making things that customers themselves are part of designing, then you need to build in just the flexibility in manufacturing. And I think with technology coming in, robotics, automation, digitalization, it's going to be increasingly more possible. So we have also robots cutting out pieces in our factories, and we're moving to that direction more and more. And probably the other dimension is just of scale. So kind of it's easy to do almost anything in a little workshop. But for us, the challenge was to do this, what you guys wanted, at a factory. So how do you build customization into a larger process?
I think that's super exciting, though, because I guess the hope is from architects is that there's this idea about, we spoke about it before, mass customization and mass production. If there was a way to mass produce customizability or customization, it would be super exciting, because then it gives you that opportunity to essentially design whatever they want and then produce it in a sustainable manner. And I think we're getting close in terms of the technologies, like bringing robotics into the factory, maybe potential autonomous systems or machine learning systems that can do things. For us anyway, like what we designed was a small app, but I could imagine that could have far more intelligence. It could produce the drawings. It could produce the CAD needed to go to the robot. It could produce the source code or whatever is necessary, and you could potentially automate that process. Maybe not today, but maybe 5-10 years down the line, that somebody goes, you know what, I want my living room to look like this. Design it, fabricates it, someone maybe delivers it on site, and it could be a fast process. I hope.
Well, I don't know, this is an amazing discussion, but we are running out of time. So if there are any questions from the audience, like we can take one last one. Any hands? Doesn't look like it. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll continue with the discussion later off the stage. Yeah, please feel free to contact, obviously, Andres, if you have any questions about Thermory's offer. Thank you, Shaun. I don't know, this is pretty cool. When industry meets like craziness in a sense, and then they actually get something done together. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us, and thanks to the audience, obviously, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.